The story begins with a billionaire who seemed to have everything: money, power, influence, private jets, mansions across the world, and a circle of friends that included presidents, billionaires, celebrities, and royalty. His name was Jeffrey Epstein. For years, Epstein moved quietly among the most powerful people on Earth. He hosted extravagant parties, funded scientific research, and traveled the world on his private jet. To many outsiders, he looked like just another mysterious billionaire with powerful connections. But behind the luxury and influence, investigators say something far darker was happening. Authorities later alleged that Epstein was running one of the most disturbing sex trafficking operations involving elite circles in modern history. The allegations were shocking. According to prosecutors and victims, Epstein recruited young girls, many of them teenagers, and brought them to his mansions in places like New York, Florida, and the Caribbean. Some of the girls were reportedly promised money, help with school, or opportunities that seemed impossible to refuse. But those promises, victims later said, were part of a grooming process. Investigators believe Epstein built a network designed to recruit, transport, and exploit young victims for years. Some girls were allegedly encouraged to bring other girls into the system, creating a cycle that allowed the operation to grow quietly. One of the most controversial parts of the case involved Epstein's close associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell was a well-known socialite who moved in the same elite circles as Epstein. According to prosecutors, she helped recruit and groom underage girls for Epstein. In 2021, Maxwell was convicted in federal court for her role in assisting Epstein's trafficking operation, bringing renewed attention to the entire scandal. But the story goes far beyond two people. Epstein owned multiple properties across the world, including a private Caribbean island called Little St. James. The island later became one of the most controversial locations connected to the case. Victims alleged that some abuse occurred there, and flight records showed that many wealthy and powerful individuals had traveled with Epstein over the years. Those flight logs quickly became the center of intense public interest. People around the world began asking the same question: who exactly knew what was happening? The logs contained the names of politicians, celebrities, and business leaders who had flown on Epstein's private jet at different times. However, investigators have repeatedly emphasized an important distinction. Being listed in a flight log does not mean someone was involved in any wrongdoing. Still, the presence of so many influential names fueled public speculation about how Epstein managed to operate for so long without facing serious consequences. For many victims, the answer lies in power. Several survivors say Epstein used his wealth and connections to avoid accountability for years. In 2008, he reached a controversial plea deal in Florida that allowed him to serve a short sentence with unusually lenient conditions. Many critics later described that deal as one of the most controversial legal agreements in modern criminal justice. But the story did not end there. More than a decade later, new reporting and lawsuits brought Epstein back into the spotlight. In 2019, federal prosecutors arrested him again on sex trafficking charges. For many survivors, it felt like justice might finally be within reach. But then something happened that shocked the world once again. While awaiting trial in a New York jail, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell. Authorities ruled his death a suicide, but the circumstances surrounding it, including security failures at the jail, immediately sparked widespread controversy and speculation. To this day, Epstein's death remains one of the most debated aspects of the entire scandal. For the victims, however, the focus has always been something else: accountability. Several survivors, including Virginia Giuffre, have spent years speaking publicly about their experiences and pursuing legal action against individuals they say were involved. Their lawsuits and testimonies helped bring global attention to the case and exposed how trafficking networks can operate even within the highest levels of society. Today, the Epstein scandal remains one of the most disturbing criminal cases involving wealth and power. It raised uncomfortable questions about influence, justice, and how someone could allegedly exploit vulnerable victims for years while maintaining friendships with some of the most powerful people in the world. And perhaps the biggest question still lingering today is this: how much of the full story do we actually know? Because even years after the case exploded into global headlines, investigators, journalists, and the public are still trying to understand how such a massive operation could exist for so long, hidden behind wealth, power, and silence. And the truth behind that question may be even more disturbing than anyone expected.